Hi, my name is Dave Pullen. I'd like to welcome you to Portland Film Beat. Tonight, my guest is Travis Brown. He's a writer, director of photography, and an editor. Welcome aboard, Travis. It's glad to have you here. Travis and I actually met on a film set, and he was a director of photography for South of Heaven, Little Sister, and he
Actually,
does a great job.
Just camera operator on that one.
Oh, he just camera operator.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you know, he does it all. We're going to see his reel in a little bit, and you're going to be really amazed at some of the stuff. Where did you train?
So I didn't train at any specific school. All self-taught, a lot of trial and error, and a lot of books, a lot of online tutorials, and learning from other people.
Okay, and you own a Blackmagic camera, is that correct?
Yeah, I own a 4K Blackmagic camera as well as the little pocket camera.
Right, okay, yeah, but some of those produce some excellent images. It's amazing what the little cameras can do tonight, huh?
For sure.
What first got you interested in being involved in filmmaking? And I've got a couple other questions I'll ask a little bit later.
Sure. I mean, I've always screwed around with old video cameras when I was a little kid.
VHS?
Yeah, VHS and
the big.
yeah. So aside from that, though, what really got me interested is watching films from people like Ron Fricke and Stanley Kubrick, and real serious films. Got me more interested in actually producing my own work, and yeah.
So you actually, The Signal's your production company, I take it?
Yeah, the Signal Productions is my production company, yeah.
Okay, so your favorite thing is being the camera operator, is that true?
I think so, yeah. I do enjoy editing as well, but I think cinematography is probably my favorite.
Right. Your current project is South of Heaven, is that correct?
Yeah.
Or are you working on something new?
Well, we just wrapped on that, Little Sister, South of Heaven, Little Sister. I'm also working on a short film called While I'm Awake, starring my girlfriend. And then I also just finished writing my first feature film. So, yeah.
Cool, nice. Well, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that in a little bit. So
cool.
Let's talk about composition, because a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot involved with filmmaking when it comes to the camera, setting up the shot. Tell us what lead room is.
So lead room is generally employed when you want to give your actors space, especially if you have a character who's just walking down the street, for instance, and you're panning with them. You give them space in front of them to indicate that they're going somewhere, essentially.
So what is meant by the rule of thirds? This is an important one here. So.
Yeah, so the rule of thirds it's really more of a guideline, but it's about dividing the frame or the image on the screen into 9 equal parts, and it's a good guideline to lead to interesting compositions. You can put an actor in like the top left third and an interesting object in the bottom right third or something like that. And it's really good for communicating what a director wants. If they say put them in the top right third, you know how to frame it.
Okay,
so,
right.
Yeah.
And so why do they want no large blank spaces in a frame?
Well, typically it's kind of boring, and it's sometimes distracting. I think it can be used effectively to have large blank space occasionally, but typically you don't want it because it's just bland. It's kind of uninteresting, and it's a little strange.
And another thing is no white walls.
Yeah, and so that's another one that's typically you don't want to do that. Sometimes it's okay if the story calls for it, but I think you see that on a lot of low budget films because they're shooting inside their house and they just have white walls.
You gotta do what you gotta do, right?
Yeah. So and it also kind of indicates they don't really have a set designer or someone to put some pictures up where color the walls
practical or something in the background, right?
Exactly.
Do you ever get involved in the lighting then?
A little bit. I like to have a good gaffer, but I do set up my own lighting scenarios when I'm shooting by myself. So yeah.
Do you try and shoot in order of the lighting setups? Explain the order of shooting usually that takes place on a film set.
Well, it depends. Usually, it's a good idea to set up in order of lighting setups. Excuse me, to shoot in order of lighting setups because it helps speed along production.
Right. People don't realize how long it takes to set up lighting.
Right. It's one of the longest things that, and so especially when you don't have much time, it's a good idea to go through that way. Yeah. Although I personally like the idea of, for the actor's sake, being able to do a wide shot first, run through that, and have them get comfortable emotionally with the scene and then go in for close-ups. Or
That's a good point
Yeah.
because it does help the actors get comfortable with the scene, and then when you get up close, they've
they have the
kind of
emotion.
they have the emotions there,
Yeah.
right? Can you tell us what color temperature is and the importance?
So color temperature refers to the look of the scene in terms of whether or not it's got a yellow cast or a blue cast, and ultimately you want to white balance your scene appropriately, which means having the truest whites you can and the truest colors you can. And it's based on the Kelvin scale. So, indoors you usually are relying on about 3200 Kelvin, and that tends to be a little bit more yellow. And outdoors it's about 5600 or so Kelvin, and that's because the sun is a bit bluer. So you want to match.
It doesn't seem like it would be, but it is.
Right, no, yeah. It
doesn't
totally
show up
is.
until you see it on a camera.
Exactly, yeah. So ultimately it's just all about controlling the image and having whites be as white as they can and colors be as true as they can.
So this image behind us, the signal, which is a squid. Tell us why the squid.
Well,
And the signal. Is there a reason why you named it your production company, the signal, and why the squid?
yeah, so they're kind of two ideas merged, I guess, but the squid is simply because I'm fascinated by deep sea creatures, and animals of all sorts send out their own signals to communicate with each other, and the signal is just a kind of a generalized reference to how we capture and then broadcast images and sound. It's all based on different kinds of signals, especially now. It's almost all digital signals. So,
In your opinion, there's a lot of independent filmmakers that you around town. What mistakes do you think they make when it comes to lighting and the camera? If you can answer both of those.
I don't know about around town. I mean, I've definitely seen low-budget films.
Right, we don't want to diss anybody because
right.
everybody's doing the best they can with
Exactly.
the time and money and talent they got, right?
Yeah. But I think, one of the biggest mistakes typically is underlighting a scene and relying on natural light and not balancing the scene properly.
And balancing the scene, that's important. Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that then?
Yeah, so, I mean, frequently, and even you actually see this, or I actually see this in bigger budget films as well, but, you'll see
You're
like,
probably key on it too. Just,
yeah.
It
I
jumps out
notice-
at you.
Yeah. But you'll frequently see someone in a car and the outside is just completely blown out because it's supposed to be a blue sky or a bright sky, but it's just white and there's no detail because it's not set up properly. And so that's something that I think is important is balancing ultimately your dynamic range, how much you can see into the shadows and into the light, and making sure nothing's overexposed or underexposed.
Okay, so light meters, they're very important then to you, right?
Sure, yeah.
And tell us what a light meter does.
So a light meter measures, color temperature and helps basically a person choose the right camera and lens settings for the most appropriate, or for the best look, I should say.
All right. Why don't we take a moment here and we actually watch your reel, which is
Great.
pretty fascinating. We'll be right back. We're going to watch Travis's reel and we'll be right back. That was phenomenal. I actually, I have to ask you, the motorcycle, it goes fast to real slow. How did you do that? Did you do that with the editing software? Did you actually have the camera speed go really fast and slow it down, or how'd you do that?
So the camera was a buddy of mine's camera, and we were shooting on a stabilization device that I have, and the camera was actually at a very high frame rate, meaning it was shooting a lot of frames a second, so it was actually shooting in slow motion, and in post I just sped it up and then slowed it down.
Oh,
So,
okay. It
yeah.
looked really cool the way it went.
Yeah,
I really liked that. The espresso machine, building that out, how long did it take you to shoot that? Because you did that time lapse, right?
Right, yeah, it was time lapse in the camera. I want to say it was probably about 2.5 hours or so.
Oh, so you had the camera like locked down and just
Yeah,
kept
yeah.
taking a few frames every now and then.
Yeah, so I had the camera locked in place and just did time lapse in the camera, and it took about almost 3 hours. So.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it seems like it would have taken longer from watching it.
Sure. Yeah.
For
The guy's
3 hours,
pretty
I was
fast.
thinking like 8 hours
Oh,
or something.
gotcha. Yeah.
But watching it, watching the time lapse, it seemed like it would have taken longer, but it didn't. That's interesting. So you've done short films, music videos, ads, and live events. So we saw the ad, and I have a question. As far as live events, can you tell us about a funny situation that happened to you? It could even be a worse situation, maybe.
Sure.
I think we find worse situations funny, so.
Right. Well, I don't do a lot of live events, but one event comes in mind. I was shooting a wedding, and the bride didn't want to be on camera, and it was pretty obvious.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I had 2 cameras going, but whenever she noticed a camera near her, she would like make a beeline away from the camera. So it was actually pretty hard to do. I had to be pretty sneaky.
Because you're supposed to get her on camera.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about her, essentially. So that was tricky, but I was able to like kind of sneakily get some shots and edit out all the parts where she's running away.
Talk about the importance of lenses and when to use them. I mean,
Sure.
People don't realize that a different lens can give a different feel, like a 35, a 45, an 80. Do you work with mostly prime lenses? And tell us okay, I'm asking a lot of questions of you here.
Sure.
Tell us the difference between prime lenses and non-prime.
Sure. So there's prime and zoom, and a prime is just a fixed focal length, be it 35 or 50 or whatever the focal length, and then a zoom can go from, it's a varied focal length, so you can have like a 17 to 50 millimeter lens, so you're able to change the focal length and get closer or further away from your subject.
Do you prefer to work with prime lenses, or do you have
Not necessarily. Nowadays zooms can be pretty nice.
Yeah.
In the past, the zooms were maybe not quite as good because they didn't have a fixed aperture, or they had more problems than primes, but
you didn't get a truer image with the zooms in the past?
yeah, right. Sometimes.
So tell us, what effects the different lenses give us, like a 35 as opposed to an 80?
Sure. So roughly between like a 35 and a 50 is a pretty standard focal length, and that's a pretty good representation of how we see with our eyes. And an 80 or like 100 would be a telephoto lens, a close-up lens, and that really isolates your subject a lot more. So it's a feeling of being really close and intimate with an actor or a thing that you're filming.
And so actually then when you're doing a 2-shot, you're probably using a 35 to a 50, and then when you get up close, you're using more of a higher?
Frequently, or what I like to do is just move the camera, because that way you still have the same perspective in the sense that it's the same focal length, but you're just moving in closer. So it actually feels like you as a human being are closer in on the subject. Yeah.
So you don't zoom too much with the lens. You actually move the camera more, which is a preferred way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what I'm doing. Like for an ad or something, for speed's sake, I like to use a zoom because it's quicker and you're on a time crunch. But for films and short films and stuff like that, I do like primes for that reason.
Okay, great. So tell us about the different shots. What are the 2-shot, the over the shoulder, the close-up, the extreme close-up?
Sure.
And the importance of them. What feel do you get from using them?
Sure, yeah. So standards, like you said, 2 shots over the shoulder, dirty over the shoulder. That's always a confusing one if a person hasn't heard that before. But that essentially just means that if it's dirty, that someone else's shoulder or part of their head or something is in the frame.
Right.
So it shows that they're having a conversation with the person who's being looked at. So that's a very standard one for conversation, flipping back and forth between dirty OTSs, as they're called. Extreme close-up is really good for emotion, you know, in different scenes. And yeah, you know, wide shots and 2 shots are used quite a lot to show more action and if more is going on.
Okay, so since you've shot short films, features, music videos, and ads, what is your favorite to do?
I guess I like short films a lot because they're a quicker turnaround time. Because it's kind of like a feature in that, you know, you can put the same amount of work into it and make it look really good, but you get to watch it and experience it sooner than having to wait however long it takes to edit and finish a feature. So
Let's go back to your reel. I did have another question. And was that Mandy?
yeah, Mandy's in a lot of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's your girlfriend.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Nice lady. I worked with her. The black eyes in that one part. How did you do that? That was pretty weird.
Yeah. She was wearing contacts, but they didn't actually cover the entire white of her eye. So I decided to, for a more dramatic effect, I did it in After Effects and just did it in
really?
post. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Because it looked glassy.
Yeah, I added some effects in there and tried to make it a little bit glossy, and it took a while.
So is there times where you think the camera should stay static, locked down, and at times where it should move?
Yeah, I think it depends on what the scene calls for and what the story calls for. And basically, you know, you need to have good motivation for camera movement or for a static shot.
Right, okay. And have you ever used a Steadicam?
A little bit, yeah. I owned like this very smallest version that you can get.
Yeah, but those little ones, I've seen videos of them, and they're pretty smooth. I mean, it's
Yeah.
gone from this big, huge device. I suppose you probably need the big one for, you know, a Red or
Right.
even a Arri Alexa, because
Right.
they're heavier. They're like 15 pounds. But
Yeah.
for like a smaller Blackmagic or some of these Canon
DSLRs.
Yeah, DSLRs. Those little handheld ones. I mean, I saw a video with Brett Eichenberger. It was just amazing. It was amazing that he had this little device that held to do that.
Sure. Yeah. Now I switched from Steadicam to a camera gimbal, which is a motorized stabilizer, and you can.
I've never heard of it, actually.
They're pretty fun. Yeah, you can do a bit more with them. You have to mechanically balance the camera first, and then turn it on, and the electronic motors take over, so you can actually move it around really quick. You can run.
It's
with
like a
it.
gyroscope in it, or something.
It's not quite a gyroscope, but it has 3 different axes that balance, and it's pretty fun. It's pretty cool.
I'm sure I'd love to watch it.
Yeah.
So, you did a long shot on South of Heaven?
I didn't actually operate the camera on that one. That was a Steadicam op.
Okay.
Noah.
What is the longest long shot you've done in length of time?
I did an entire short film that was a little under 18 minutes. It was kind of ridiculous.
The whole film in one shot?
Yeah. I was lucky enough to.
You had to rehearse like crazy for that.
Yeah, we rehearsed quite a bit. I was lucky enough to live under this cafe and find a house close by to use. So it was actually shot in 3 locations, but I followed one actor to one location and then another actor to another location.
Oh, so you picked up the other actor in
Yeah,
frame,
yeah.
actually, where you were moving it, huh? How do you prepare to shoot a long shot? Because a lot of people have seen them and don't pay that much attention to them. But
Sure. Yeah. Well, that one in particular, you know, was pretty tricky, but I made sure to pay attention to light and shadow and make sure that, you know, my shadow or my reflection is not being seen. So just walking through it many times.
was there a lot of dialogue?
It was a complicated situation. There's a lot of dialogue on, so it showed 3 different mediums. Like, they were all artists. So the first one's drawing something, and I went over that person's shoulder, and that sketch pad is animated, and there's a lot of dialogue in that. There's not actually much dialogue in the
So did you throw
shot.
that in After Effects?
Yeah.
The animation?
Right.
Wow. That's probably fascinating to watch.
I haven't finished yet.
You're still working on it? Yeah, because
yeah.
you're an editor too.
Yeah.
Is there a favorite long shot that you have from a film?
Yeah,
And did
there's
you learn from that?
there's a few. I mean, one that immediately comes to mind that was really impressive was one of the shots in Children of Men.
Okay.
Where they're in the car and they're like using a ping pong ball and having this conversation, and then they drive through this valley, and all these people start attacking them, and it's a very impressive shot. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So a lot of people don't realize the importance of filters. Do you use a lot of filters? And when and where, and the importance and why?
Sure.
That's a lot of questions all wrapped into one. Just keep on talking.
All right. Yeah, there are several different kinds of filters that you can use. There's an ND filter, which is neutral density, which blocks a lot of light. There's a polarizer, which changes the way the light enters the camera, so you can see through windows and through water easily.
Oh, okay, right, because when you look at water, it reflects back.
Right, right. Or if you're looking through a car window, you don't want to see everything moving by. You want to see the actor. So that's when you want to use a polarizer. And nowadays...
Oh, I see what you're saying, right.
Yeah.
You don't want to see the other cars going by.
Right, right.
Reflecting the window.
Exactly,
okay,
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So a polarizer will change the way that light reflects, or the way that light enters the camera. So, yeah.
What is your camera of choice? I know you have a Blackmagic, but if somebody was to gift you a camera, what would you like?
Oh, if someone's going to gift me one, yeah, it's a hard choice. I feel like each film and each shoot kind of requires a different camera.
I mean,
almost.
the Red gives a different feel than the Arri Alexa, although I think Arri Alexa has become more popular.
Oh yeah, it's very popular. I'm pretty partial to Sony's. I really actually like Sony's quite a bit. They see in the dark really well, typically, if you have the higher end ones.
They've got some expensive Sony cameras. I was downtown one time and they had like a $120,000 camera. I was like, holy cow.
Yeah. I mean, like an F55 would be fantastic, but then again, if you want to do a lot of motion stuff, a smaller camera is nice for the gimbals and stuff like that. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
What can a director do to make your job more easier?
I think, like anything, good communication is definitely key, and good preparation, like thorough preparation.
So do you actually try to work with the director and come up with a shot list beforehand?
Yeah, typically that's how I've done it.
So it kind of makes life, when the shot list doesn't work, at least you've thought about it and have a backup plan in place and mentally.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what is your favorite film?
I have quite a few, but I'd say up near the top of my list, Baraka is one of my all-time favorites. It's a non-narrative film, not your typical film. It's not a documentary either. It's just I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's beautifully shot.
And you pay attention to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, oh, very much so, yeah.
So when you watch a film, do you actually, a good film, do you get drawn into it and then see the film and then rewatch it to see how it was shot?
It's more that if it's done really well, then I'm not distracted by how poorly it's done. so I'll notice, I'll notice if it's shot poorly or if it sounds poorly. But if it doesn't, if it sounds and looks great, then I'll be able to be engaged in it a lot easier.
Is there a common type of film genre that you're drawn to more than others?
Not necessarily a genre. I would say more whether or not the film is impactful and engaging and emotionally interesting. Yeah.
So we've got a little bit of time left. I'd like to hear about this feature film you wrote. Tell us the premise of it.
Okay, well, I'll probably keep it a little short, but I don't want to give too much away just yet. But I wrote it about 6 years ago. I wrote about 90% of it. And then I
keep revisiting it, right?
Well, I shelved it for about 5 years, and then I picked it back up last year and decided that I really wanted to make it. So I rewrote it, and I chose certain scenes from the original writing to include. And it's the same concept. But anyways, I rewrote it, and it's essentially about a young man who's really, really depressed and decides that his life is not worth living anymore. So he tries to commit suicide, but he can't. He keeps failing. And
oh, that's horrible.
Yeah. So it's kind of a black comedy-ish, an intellectual drama / black comedy, I guess is what I'd call it.
Right.
But he keeps failing, he keeps hurting himself and not being able to do it. And throughout this, he has these conversations with other people that interact with him about whether or not life is worth living and why. And then there are a lot of flashbacks to how he got there.
Okay.
But most of it takes place within a day. So,
okay. And where do you hope to see yourself in 5 years?
Hopefully shooting and possibly directing more features.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's your production company. If people wanted to get a hold of you, they can get a hold of you through the email address. I think they brought it up.
Right.
I didn't pay attention. I'm sure they did. So that, and you do weddings.
Yep. Yeah.
Is that bread and butter?
You know, I haven't done actually that many weddings. I do commercials, web videos, any kind of video really.
Right.
So
So was that motorcycle shot? Was that for a commercial, or was that just something you wanted to do?
no, that was just me and some friends testing out my camera gimbal actually.
Okay,
So,
right.
Yeah.
Is that a GoPro on the front of on the front of the motorcycle?
It
too?
is. Yeah. Yeah.
All
yeah.
right. So you showed a little bit of the reverse. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Behind
That was
the scenes.
awesome. You know, I'm really glad you came on.
Yeah. Thank
and
you
we
very
talked
much.
about camera. A lot of people don't realize how important, how long it takes to set up a shot.
Right.
A lot of times in film, it can take 6 hours to set up, 20 seconds of screen time.
Right. Right.
And it can seem daunting. And they don't realize how much work cinematographers and lighting people, gaffers, and,
Right.
and all the others behind the scenes do. Because
Definitely.
usually you're there an hour before the actors.
Right. Yeah.
And you get a lot of work done, and you're there an hour after they're gone.
Right,
So
cleaning up.
you really take a lot of time. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, we're about running out of time here at Portland Film Beat. I want to thank you for paying attention. I want to thank Travis Brown for coming on. I want to thank Christo and Krista down here at Tualatin Valley Community Media for helping out. Ellery Nelson is my director. He does a great job. Phil and Sue Holmes, the assistant directors, do a great job. I also want to thank my wife, the executive producer, Carol Poland. In addition, I have to thank the people down at Portland Community Media because they help me a lot and they're very patient with me because I've made a lot of mistakes. Anyway, until next time on Portland Film Beat, shoot for the silver screen.